And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Sohail, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're focused on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I almost said Lower Decks. Season 2, Episode 7. Those old scientists. Dang, those old scientists. And also, as Jill pointed out, those old Orion scientists as well, which I like it being called twos.
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 Yeah.
Welcome, audience. I'm so happy to be doing a live broadcast. It's been a minute, and I'm really happy to be joined by this beautiful panel of friends. We've got Ken over here to my are you on the left or the right? I can never tell on these broadcasts because it always
stage right.
You're stage on right. There we go. Stage right. Stage up. We've got Robbie, Earl Grey Trekkie, and Braxton stage upright. So welcome, gentlemen. It's so nice to see you.
Hey, boys. Sunday greetings. Nice to see you guys.
Sunday greetings.
Sunday
greetings. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and it's nice that I would return on this very special Comic-Con weekend episode. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, if you all haven't checked it out, we have Text Trek did a Comic-Con recap yesterday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It was really cool. And 8 p.m. Eastern time. And tonight they're going to be doing a fans discussion, like a reaction stream at 7 p.m. Central time on the Text Trek channel. And we've got Father in the audience, so that's pretty cool too to see him there.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, have you ever been to a San Diego Comic-Con or any of those, like the New York one maybe?
No, the closest I've gone is Awesome Con in DC, which is kind of nice, but I've never been to a Comic-Con. I am excited about going to Vegas though.
Yeah, it's like what is it, 7 days away? Oh, we lost Braxton.
After that nice cordial introduction, he's like, "That's it, I'm out of here."
There he is. He's back.
Wow.
Was it something I said?
No, I hit log into StreamYards and it just took me out. I'm not logged into StreamYards, but it's fine.
Excellent. Oh yeah, because you can chat now. This is something behind the scenes, but if you log into StreamYards, apparently it kicks you out, but you can also chat in the audience. So that's pretty cool. Oh, look, we have Sir Uncle Art in the audience too, Benjinium, Joel. It's nice to see everyone. We got to do these lives more often. It's actually fun to hang out with folks. So, Ken, can I implore upon you to do the episode summary for this week before we get into the discussion?
And I promised an extremely short one because this is a very complex episode, but we start with the Cerritos fully animated, and we are suddenly on the Cerritos with our Lower Decks gang, and they're talking about the excitement of seeing a portaling with the portals, and having all kinds of great times. And Boimler is kind of shocked that Mariner's leading the mission, and Tendy's like, "We discovered this portal. The Orions discovered this portal," and they're all super excited to beam down and go chase tachyons and stuff. They're so super excited that they decide it's important to be the tourist thing, and so they decide to take a picture while Boimler's standing in the portal doing his best Spock. And suddenly the portal starts portaling. Boimler yells, "Remember me!" And then
the portal starts portaling. I'm going to totally tweet that later.
The portal starts portaling. Boimler yells, "Remember me!" Then suddenly, he's no longer two-dimensional. He opens his eyes, sees Spock, and says in the first of very, very many things, and Rutherford was great. Jill, you're right, in this opening sequence. He says, "Wow, you guys seem so realistic." And then we go to the opening credits of Strange New Worlds, animated like Lower Decks, complete with the beastie that loves to eat nacelles. And so that was very exciting. And then suddenly we're back to Lower Decks, and Boimler is on board the Enterprise and is woken up by Pike. Boimler knows everybody, is stunned by number one, shocked by number one, which is a thread through the whole episode. And a number of things shock Boimler as we go through this, and we'll talk about it in depth, I guess, during this course of this thing. But, one of the things that really shocks Boimler, and he gets to, I certainly related to this with, he's like, Spock is smiling. What the hell is going on? It's like, so Boimler was being all the fans who are like, what are they doing here with these characters? So as they go through, they meet the Orions, and Boimler's trying to do his best not to say things. He swears with Worf's honor that he's not going to say anything, and he's not going to say anything that's going to alter the future. He mounts the saddle, doing Riker as he mounts the saddle, which is all fun little things. Gets to meet Uhura. They finally figure out that they can send Boimler back. They have one time to send Boimler back, and I'm skipping through some stuff because we'll talk about it in detail. They beam back down, and Boimler's ready to go, and you hear Mariner saying, "Here I come," and she jumps through, and suddenly Mariner is also live action, and suddenly there were two.
Is Uhura here? Because you guys are okay, but
yeah. So we're here because you guys are okay, but and then they are coming back up. They beam back up to the ship where they where number one notes that their references are surprisingly specific, and that they're talking really fast. And suddenly Mariner is hanging out with Uhura, and they go through all the stuff with the Orions, and ultimately, of course, they're going to be sent back. Through the portal, through a bunch of mechanisms, chasing the Orions, getting the portal back, finding out about Tendi's past and using Tendi's past to save the day. And then they are sent back to the Lower Decks universe. And that's right, Michelle. Don't get used to it, though. Don't get used to it. Wow. and suddenly they are back in Lower Decks time, and they're back being fully animated, and Tendi's excited about how the Orions discovered the portal, and they beam back up, and there's a nice little aside with Jerry O'Connell commenting very happy things about the most beautiful number one in the universe, because it happens to be his wife too, which is a little aside. And very meta. And then we go back to Strange New Worlds, where they are drinking the drink that Mariner introduced them to, which makes them very, very animated and makes Spock's arm do crazy things. And M'Benga closes it with, "What the hell was with that drink?" And suddenly we're done with one of the best crossovers. That's one of the best crossovers that Star Trek has ever done.
Absolutely.
And that's my quick summary.
That was really
a great summary.
Yeah, that was a really great summary. 8 minutes, super. I mean, actually, less than that, because it took us like a few minutes to get going. So yeah, super job. I can't do that. I'm not always good at giving good and brief summaries. My summaries tend to be like 30 minutes long. So, but they cross over into discussion. So I guess that's an okay thing. But yeah, bravo, nice. So overall, sounds like you really enjoyed this episode, Ken.
I hated it. It was terrible. No. I thought I give it very high marks. I got to see it. I got to see it twice, and I watched it twice, and so I need to watch it again. But it was incredibly well done for what it was, and you have got to really recognize Mike McMahon and Jonathan Frakes for making this episode what it was, as well as the amazing Jack Quaid and Tawny. What's her last name?
Newsom.
Tawny Newsom. Thanks. That was a test. You guys all got it. They were fantastic, and it was very, very well done. It was very, very meta. It did poke fun at the fact that, hey, they're playing around with the original series or those old scientists. Like, Spock's smiling. Hot Spock is smiling. What's going on there? So yeah,
I can't even.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
To do the creepy smile. Hold on.
Yeah. No. That was creepy smile. Ethan Peck has got some great stuff to do this season. Really does. So
it's kind of funny that he was smiling so much in this episode when he hasn't really smiled as much in the show as a whole.
Yeah, that's true.
But I suppose it's for the comedy, you know.
Yeah, I guess he
Yeah.
started doing it though for Nurse Chapel. Like he's been like kind of honed in. You know, we saw him smile in the cage, and then that was it. And so in Discovery, he was pretty dour. He was emotional in a different way. He was kind of like, you know, very angry, I guess you could
It
say.
was the beard. It was
Yeah,
the
there's
beard.
good reason to. It's so
Yeah.
hot when he had the beard. I love
Right,
Lumberjack Spock.
exactly.
That I called him Lumberjack Spock. And
He's
anyways,
a lumberjack, and that's okay.
but I like this. I really like the idea because since Spock is half human, there's so many possibilities for him to kind of like experiment and like figure himself out. And I like that we're seeing that for sure. Robbie, why don't you just go ahead and tell us your opening thoughts, and then you can go next, Braxton.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed this episode. I feel like this whole season has been really fun, and this episode to see, you know, the actors Tawny Newsome and Jack Quaid just have so much fun on screen. Was just brilliant. You know, I feel like this show is probably the most suited to this kind of crossover because it's already kind of comedic. I don't have a lot of deep thoughts about this episode because it was just kind of funny. You know, it was just like, you know, trials and tribulations. It was that kind of style of episode, but it was just a really fun episode to watch, and I'm so excited for the musical episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the program, but yeah, super excited about that too. Braxton, what'd you think of this episode?
You know, so I feel like Strange New World season 3 is just candy. Like nothing actually really happens in the show. But like it's like sweet and it's like good to watch and it like makes you feel good. But like I feel like just nothing is happening, you know. I really enjoyed the blend of the two shows. I thought that it was really beautiful. This episode was beautiful in that regard. I really enjoyed seeing Jack Quaid. You know, I mean, Jack Quaid is just like really great. Like he seems like he's in like everything these days. You know, like I feel like Star Trek is lucky to have him right now. You know, I feel like the episode was good, but you know, I don't know, just like it's like felt like 45 minutes of just like fanboying and fangirling. You know, it was like highly anticipated because you know we've been seeing like footage of it for like the last 8 months, it seems, and you know, it kind of disappointed me, but for what it was, I think that it was very good. It was a really good blend of the shows. Like I loved seeing Strange New Worlds like animated at the end. Like I thought that was super cute. I am so tired of the Chapel and Spock storyline. I feel like one of the only things that actually happened is in this episode was that maybe Boimler is giving them a reason for it to stop, and so hopefully that will be successful. But yeah, I thought that it was a great blend of the shows.
Wait, you're talking about what Boimler says to Chapel? You're hoping for Chapel and Spock to not
No,
be
like I'm to not be together. Like, yeah, hopefully, like Boimler's words, like
I
will
definitely
convince them to stop and like, yeah.
I think Roger Corby is going to convince them to stop, but I definitely think Boimler tipping her off on the future got her to like kind of. It was a very sad moment, actually. To
I mean,
me,
I'm
'cause,
tired of seeing this actress crying and shedding tears over Spock. I feel like it's been
she
like
hasn't shed a tear yet, has she?
No, she did like 2 episodes ago. She was crying, dude. Like, I mean, I am so tired of seeing this actress like crying over Spock. Like, it's just it's too much now. I'm tired of the storyline.
Spock is worth crying over, if I say so myself. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I love that it's a combination of things that Chapel's going through that's going to stop them getting together. You know, it's not just one thing. We're seeing it throughout the show that it's multiple things.
Because really, he's not that great to be with.
He's
you know,
actually
like
not.
Really,
not
she needs to. She really needs to move on. She can really do better.
And
Spock
Roger Corby will be the better.
I can't wait. I can't wait for Roger Corby. I hope he's like so cool and nice. Because the sad thing is that what's horrifying though, or horrible, I guess I should say, is that poor Chapel, like, man, like, okay, so it doesn't work out with Spock, and then her fiance, her actual fiance, who she decides to get married, ends up getting lost. She goes to search for him. When she finds him, he's like, and he's replaced by an android, and he's evil. So it's like,
Yeah, she's not having the best of times.
Yeah,
she's more
it's
having
not-
the worst of times there. Yeah.
exactly.
But it was they did two things that I thought was very interesting. Well, they did more than two things, but clearly what happens is you see that Boimler and Mariner have had an amazing impact on these original series characters, Chapel, Spock, and Uhura, right? So if you follow the thread, it's Mariner who basically convinces Uhura that she needs to change her ways to become the Uhura that we all know and love, right? And Tawny did a great job doing that. She's like, yeah, I get that. And, they go to the bar because the Enterprise has a bar now. And, they get served these drinks. And, she's looking at the Bajoran and Cardassian languages, which I think is a little bit too early to look at Bajoran and Cardassian languages, in my opinion. But okay, whatever.
Did we not get reference to them in Enterprise though? I thought we did. Not the Bajorans. Well, the Bajorans have been around. Maybe they're known, and so are the Cardassians, but they're not. They're just not contacted, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the Nausicaans and Starbase Earhart, and referencing that episode with that reference in Tapestry. I think one of my favorite lines, although it also doesn't make that much sense, is don't mention Q. They don't know Q. They're sort of doing a Trelane thing here. That was a little bit weird because anyway, but it was fun. But I thought it was very, very cool. In a sad kind of way, for when Chapel and Boimler are riding in the turbolift, and he's saying, I read all the books about Spock, and he mentions all these things, which are things that would be mentioned if you subtract Strange New Worlds from the equation, right? They mention him growing up, his Sailot, his relationship with Amanda and Sarek, but no mention of the relationship with Chapel at all. So I thought that was a very interesting thing to do. It was very much like they were saying, okay, you TOS fans, we're going to play your little game here. We're going to pretend in a way that Strange New Worlds doesn't exist, but obviously it does, and we're going to answer some of these questions. So, 171 dash, what would be up with the
dash? Very cool. So Hale played Domjot. No, I would never play against a Nausicaan. I hate them. I would walk out of the room.
So Hale played Domjot human.
Although Jill's pointing out here that ancient Nausicaans are brilliant scientists. Who knew those dumbasses who stabbed Picard with such a disappointment to their I love this episode personally so much. I've been waiting for it, and the musical episode I've been waiting for a long time as well. So I'm excited that we're getting like these crazy episodes of Star Trek. I just love that there's this thing that I've wanted Star Trek to do for a long time, which Star Wars does really well, which is like taking an animated character and putting them into a live action thing. Just no big deal. Like just doing it back and forth. And with Ahsoka, we're definitely going to get that because it's like the Rebels reunion, basically.
Yeah, basically.
So I love that kind of stuff. And so Star Trek kind of has finally done that, and it's really neat to see it because the other thing I was watching this episode with Michelle and Jesse, and all of us were surprised at how unjarring it was to see the transition from animation to live action for those characters, considering how like animated they actually are. And a lot of people said this online, but they played it like it was teetering on. It could have been really successful, as I think, it was for most people, or it could have been a total disaster, depending on how they, how far they went with it. But I think they stayed on that line just perfectly throughout the whole show. Because there were Boimler had his run, all his mannerisms, his
Yep.
screams, Mariner's wit, like her hair. I think Jill was pointing out, it's like perfect. It looked
And her
just like
sleeves,
that.
her rolled up
And her
sleeves.
rolled up sleeves, all that stuff. You know, the uniforms were like spot on. Like, by the way, second favorite uniform after the Monster Maroon. I want a Monster Maroon, I still do, but I also want that Lower Decks uniform. I think it's like a top-notch uniform, and it looks great in live action as well. But in addition to that, it was really neat. Yes, Fathery, there were people who didn't like this episode. I saw it online. But and I think Braxton was like, it's okay. Right?
No, that was okay.
It was okay. So it's not that you didn't like it, but you thought it was okay. But yeah, just like I also loved there's this idea, like the crew kind of, you know, trying to find out what their fates are, but not wanting to know their fates at the same time, because it's like a genuine, I feel like that's a genuine thing. If you genuinely met a time traveler who knows your future, you kind of want to know if everything's going to be all right. So it was neat to get these like references, you know, to things, and like, you know, Uhura getting a little boost in the time when she was just kind of not being able to figure it out. Also learning how to like disconnect a little, and like how a 5-minute break, you know, could just like change everything for you. Pike, that scene with Pike when he's about to give them the dressing down. I love also that like every time he's trying to like, he's being annoyed by them, he can't help but love them, because they're like, they grew up like, you know, hero worshiping the Enterprise crew. I mean, the Enterprise is the flagship of Starfleet, and it will be all the way into their time. You know, like during their time, I think it's the Enterprise F, right? Like, I guess, or maybe the E might still be. Worf hasn't crashed or whatever he's done to the E yet, I don't think, in Lower Decks. But anyway, regardless, like the Enterprise is a big deal.
Yeah.
The Enterprise is a big deal in Starfleet, and I think it's great. You know, obviously we can't have those old scientists, as in season 1 of Lower Decks they were referring to Kirk and crew, so we can't have that. That's you'd have to do that in animation. Like, it wouldn't be possible to do that as a live action. But because we have a show set in the original series time frame, very close to it, and like, you know, set on the Enterprise with the crew that inhabited her before Kirk and his folks, it's neat to see them being honored so much. And then an added bonus was, what I loved is that like the Enterprise crew started to fan out about Enterprise, like about NX-01, and like that was so like I thought that was like one of the most special things, is that like how it just tied all of it together, going like, you know, and it was very meta, as you said, but it was also very like, you know, it's like a love letter to Star Trek. You know, I know we say that a lot. Like Lower Decks, the whole show is a love letter to Star Trek, but this in particular is like one of the best love letters that I've experienced. I mean, there's just so many things to unpack. But what did you guys think of, like, how did your expectations versus how the show kind of came out? How did that fare in finally seeing it? Like, for example, you know, one of the things I didn't know how they were going to do is like, how are they going to mix the live action and the animated sequences? And would it be like Roger Rabbit? Would they be going back and forth? Things like that, you know? But I was really delighted that we started out on the Cerritos with that mission, and like, you know, the way that they transitioned just like went perfectly. And then to cap it off, like the end cap is, you know, this Orion drink makes you hallucinate that you're two-dimensional and stuff like that. I thought that was great, because you get a little flavor of what it would be like if all of Star Trek were animated.
Right. Do I have big eyes? Do my eyes seem big?
My arm is doing this thing that it's never done before.
I thought I knew they weren't going to do Roger Rabbit. You know, there was actually thoughts that, you know, when it was first brought up, some of the folks said, "Is this Roger Rabbit?" I'm glad that they didn't do that. You know, I had thought that they were going to potentially have the Strange New Worlds characters interact with the Lower Decks characters in animation as well somehow. But it was nice to see the Strange New Worlds tag at the end where they're all animated. You know, I thought it was really, there were big emotional scenes with Boimler and Mariner that were more Strange New Worlds than Lower Decks, right? So you sort of saw these characters in a Strange New Worlds kind of setting, and in the way that they played the scene. And I'm thinking in particular about the scene in the captain's quarters where Boimler is all upset, and Mariner said, "Oh, don't let it get dressed down by someone he dresses up as Halloween," and I thought that was very cool. So that's like a Lower Decks thing, but then that entire scene about, and for those of us who don't have all of our parents anymore, this idea of I'm 1 year older than my father was, which I went through about 10 years ago.
Oh wow.
So I totally related to that. But I also loved the line that the Lower Deckers threw back and said, "Imagine your people don't want one more moment to talk with you," right? So they did throw this.
So good. I got chills just now remembering that. Yeah.
And that is not, I mean, you do sort of see a little bit of that in Lower Decks, but that was very much the Lower Decks characters being in the Strange New Worlds universe. And I thought that was very well done. I agree. Jack Quaid did a great job of sort of pulling in some of his animated Boimlerisms into the episode, the run, the scream, the dive, all that stuff. They just did a great job. They stole the show. They absolutely stole the show. And, in watching the Ready Room, they were saying, "Can we do this again?" And it wouldn't surprise me if somehow they cross back over again, because I think a lot of people loved how this turned out.
Or would you like to see like an episode of Lower Decks where all of a sudden Lower Decks is randomly live action? Like I feel like with the AR wall you could actually like make it happen. Like sets could actually be realized that you didn't have before, including the bridge and stuff. What were you gonna say, Robbie?
Oh, I was just gonna say that'd be expensive, but you just explained it. With the AR wall.
The AR wall.
Yeah, you could totally do it with the AR wall and just a few little, I mean, like, did they build any? They didn't build any corridors of the Enterprise D, but like I feel like the Cerritos has a similar vibe to those corridors. I feel like you could just build 1 or 2 corridors, maybe a ship's quarter. What they could build is the bunk bed area.
Yeah. Right.
That would be a really cool thing to see in live action as well. Robbie or Braxton, live action expectations that you had versus what actually happened.
Tawny Newsome is really great. Ken mentioned the Ready Room, and I watched it also. I thought that it was funny that she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna like go for it, and like whatever they don't like, they'll just cut it." I thought that was cool. She's like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go for it." She has so much passion for what she's doing on Star Trek, and I think that's really great to hear. But like Ken said, I thought that this was like a really good weaving of the two shows. How it like started out like Lower Decks, and in the middle, is all the Strange New World stuff, and then like it ends with our Strange New World cast being animated. I thought it was like a great blend of the shows.
I assumed that it was going to be some kind of transporter accident, and we see Mariner and Boimler animated on the Strange New Worlds Enterprise, but then somehow the crew get them to live action mode. And I also assumed that Mariner would, well, if we're going into the chapel stuff, that Mariner would actually, be the person that would say, "No, you're better than Spock. This isn't going to work." And I think it's kind of sad that, it was just Uhura and Spock that were being kind of fan pleased, La'an or Mabenga or Chapel. They're just whatever. It's just the main TOS characters.
Really? Is that how you kind of read it? Because they were definitely, I feel like Uhura and Spock were definitely focal points because of Boimler and Mariner, so you're absolutely right about that. But I think everyone got a fair shake. I don't know.
This is more evidence, Robbie. What you just said is more evidence that La'an dies, like toward the end of the show, like because because like I was saying last week though, like La'an and this version of Kirk have so much chemistry. Like they seem so good that like he would like wife her, and and like, obviously we don't know anything about La'an before like this show, so I feel like La'an is gonna die. You know, like they don't know anything about La'an, dude. Like,
It's true.
you
La'an is
know,
suspiciously. Or what if she does like what everyone suspected Trip happened to Trip? Like, because now she's got this like extra time travel, thing added to her story. So maybe the temporal agency is like, look, La'an, you're supposed to die today. We at the temporal agency use this as a reason to recruit people. Your history will remember you died, but like you're actually going to come work for us and do temporal shenanigans. So I hope that's what happens, because I like her too much.
I love La'an. La'an's like my favorite character on the
She
show.
is
Dude.
really
I love
cool.
La'an, dude.
What are you gonna say, Ken?
It was great to hear her sort of recount the rules about time travel.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was neat.
Yeah.
And just looking at the comment, I think from Jill, yes, about worshiping old tricorder design. Nothing like the black and silver, but these tricorders apparently explode, so we have to be careful about it.
Christina Chong's acting in that scene in particular is so good, because you can feel, without her saying anything, it just like made me feel the pain of losing her Kirk, like of her losing her version of Jim, in that one adventure. And so yeah, I really enjoyed that. But I also like how, she was. I just love her. She's like great as a security person. Like how she kind of like showed up in the shuttlecraft, because she's monitoring what they're doing. By the way, that shuttlecraft scene was cool. Like for the first time, I think that's the first time we've seen shuttles like leaving and docking from that perspective. Yes. And it's the first time where like, I know it doesn't look anything like the TOS shuttle bay, but it reminded me of the TOS shuttle bay. I don't know why. But just something about the scale of it and the scope of it, and just like the the shuttles vibrating, the scene, and like I don't know, there's something about it that was very, again, not exactly the same as far as the look and feel of it, but just the vibe was very similar to what I thought of the TOS shuttle bay. What did you guys think?
I wish Boimler had a line where he'd said, "Oh, it's the Strange New World, it's the Enterprise before the TOS refit," or something like that.
Oh yeah, like just to kind of satisfy that. Yeah, it's Ken's waiting. Like,
I'm not waiting
with bated breath for the explanation.
Oh, also, Boimler's scream scared my cats. Like my cats were like chilling out watching the show, and like Boimler screamed, and they scattered.
It was, yeah. I mean, the scream was great. I didn't have any pets that were scared, so they do homage very well, right? I'm gonna give Strange New Worlds this. They do homage very well. They do a great homage to the bridge. They do the homage like you just described, Sohail, to the hangar deck, and even the interior of the shuttle. So the interior of the shuttle on the original series, they have that arm coming across with the sort of the half globe on it on the original series, and you see a version of it in Strange New Worlds, right? So they do homage quite well, and yes, what Father is referring to is that there's Eagle Moss books where, and it's probably right behind me, where they have the history of the Enterprise, and it goes from the Menagerie Enterprise to the Strange New Worlds Enterprise, and then back to the original series Enterprise, and it's all one timeline. They try to explain it in this book.
Oh, neat. So that means they could probably do something like that in live action, which is great. Or not. I really don't care. Like, personally, I'm okay with my imagination filling in the gaps on certain things. But yeah, very cool. I thought they were going to do the blast shield joke in live action in that scene. What were you going to say, Robbie?
They could even have, if they don't want to make the sets, in the last episode of Strange New Worlds, they could just have the air wall behind the cast. It's like a last scene where they leave the Enterprise, and it's TOS style.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. They explain, I think, if I remember the book correctly, they said that they modified the Enterprise because they knew it was going on a longer mission, and they modified it for the Klingon War. And then with the Klingon War now over, they took the best of that and they refit it back to Kirk's Enterprise. I don't know. I have to read the explanation more. But it's interesting to see the diagrams. Right?
Oh, you know what? I like that idea. It's like, let's turn her into a warship for a little while, and then when times are more peaceful, let's get her back to her, put more labs back in, get, science labs, like science equipment, like maybe even the hull has a different, having the hull having a different texture affects, like, for example, like right now, maybe she's a stealth ship. Maybe she's hard to detect on long range sensors. But like later on, because she's, and that's why they changed the livery to white as well, because it's like changing her from like a warship to a friendlier looking ship, back from, back into a friendlier looking ship. I kind of like that idea. It's like
Kirk's Enterprise has got twice the number of personnel on it. So
that's correct.
The idea that you've got these big spacious things, these big spacious crew quarters and hallways and everything, suddenly you're going from 200 people to 450 people, you've got to make things smaller.
And I've always liked the idea. It's something that I think has been, at least in the movies or in the Scotty's Guide or somewhere, I forget where I read it, but like the parts on starships are quite modular. Like you can actually, swap out anything on a bridge. The bridge is definitely a module. Yeah. So like, yeah, I really like that idea. So there's not really, when you really stop and think about it, there's not really a lot of things that cannot be reasonably explained to, account for these differences. Yes, there's a huge difference in this, in the sense that, like, wow, like some of the sets just look like way more advanced or whatever. But I think that's been an issue since Enterprise, honestly. So I can't really ding Strange New Worlds or Discovery for it, because Enterprise broke that that like adherence to these things. Like, in my opinion, Enterprise should have looked like The Expanse more than it does itself. But I
mean, the fan, I've said this before, but the fan series that have been done, like Star Trek Continues and stuff, that use the sets that were built up in Ticonderoga, those look like very much like the 60s. The models that they use in those fan movies, those fan series, are the 60s models and the 60s music and all that. And I think that holds up very well. But I don't think that it would hold up for like a mass market show like Strange New Worlds is trying to be. So I get it. I understand. So for this afternoon on a special Sunday, I will say it's fine. But next Thursday, it's not going to be fine again. So take it as it is. So
Cake is Eternals pointing out, I can't imagine this Jim Kirk getting rid of the bar. Jim's always liked to drink, but yeah, I can't imagine him getting rid of the bar either. But clearly the lounge and the bar turn into smaller versions, no more windows. Kirk's the 1701's a very different ship from this one. They even actually seal up a lot of the viewports from here to there, because this version of Enterprise has a lot of viewports as well. But
so basically, they make the ship smaller, more claustrophobic, less.
I'm gonna say the smaller is debatable. And actually, we have Triangulum Audio Studios here. He might know because he does a lot of these videos on that. But I think the smaller is debatable. The scale's all over the place in the original series, so I think it's okay to just say it's the same size. It's the same size ship, like, but they're gonna have a lot more people. But you're right, there is like, but in TOS we don't know the scale. Like, we don't really know the scale. Do they ever say like the Enterprise is such and such meters or anything like that you know of?
They do it in many of the books, but I don't know if they.
I don't think they ever do it on screen. Yeah, so. Yeah. I don't think they ever will. It's a good thing not to say it, just for future proof or past proof the shows, and just let you imagine.
They do size comparisons. Like the Enterprise D is significantly larger than the Enterprise, and the Enterprise from the original series is slightly smaller than the refit for the motion
picture. Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Going back to that Pike scene. For a second. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Let's talk about the Orions. That's what's next on my list. So that was a really cool aspect of the series. And I saw in the chat that some folks were hoping Tendi would appear, or at least I was hoping that Tendi's great grandmother would appear, and it would be played by Noelle Wells. So it's okay that it didn't happen, but that's kind of like what I was like, oh, are we going to see the Tendi of this era? But I really, really, really like dug the Orions in this episode, and I especially loved how like Tendy's like so insistent that like the Orions discovered the portal. And Boimler's like, no, it was the Enterprise. But because of the events, we see exactly why Tendi thinks that. Pike, as far as Pike was concerned, was ready to let history remember the Orions as discovering it. And I love that the scientist captain was like, that's all I've ever wanted. It was so touching and so moving. And I really dig this idea of like the Orions not being two-dimensional anymore as pirates. Like, yeah, sure, a great many of them are, but like we can, I love Tendi points out, like, who do you think built the ships? And that's something that's true for Klingons. We've seen Klingon scientists before. I think was it on what was it on was that on TNG or DS9? I can't remember.
Klingon scientists on Enterprise.
TNG as well. Well, no, wait. In Suspicions, don't we have like a... No, that wasn't a scientist, was it?
Was there a Klingon scientist when Dr. Crusher was helping to develop the metaphasic shielding?
That's the episode I was...
Is that the one, right? So yeah, so we've seen Klingons.
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh right. Yeah, Michelle is also verifying. Thank you.
We need the Beverly alert.
Yeah. Well, this is a Beverly friendly account, so
yeah,
we can go on many Beverly tangents here if we want. Which, remember me, by the way, as you pointed out earlier, is definitely a reference, I think. There we go.
Thank you, Stan.
Stan did the Beverly alert. Michelle did it to herself too. That's so funny.
Yep. That's a fam. Good job.
Valerie's saying here that the Enterprise is like 280 something meters. It's confirmed on screen in Disco season 2, actually, if I remember correctly. Wow, interesting.
All right, I gotta look.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look at the official making of Star Trek. I think it's in here somewhere. Let me see.
Stan, that was not shade to the salon.
No one would ever shade the salon. Come on.
The salon's awesome, by the way. If you know, you know. It's like, it only appears once a week and it disappears a few hours after. So you gotta find it. Oh, I love being Bev verified. Oh my gosh, can you guys create a graphic called Bev verified? So we can put that on our stuff. But yeah, what did you guys think of the Orions and the whole thing with how it turned out?
I thought that was a good storyline. It was so Boimler to advise the captain on the Orions, and then for him to be wrong, and then like Captain Pike looks at him after like the Orions take off, and he's like, okay. And then it was great, like, at the end when G was like, oh yeah, like that's all that I ever wanted, I was like, yeah, that's cool. I thought the storyline was nice. It was nice to see.
Braxton, which way is it? Do you like the episode or not? Because it sounds like you like it.
He likes it. He
so
just doesn't love
it.
It's just not like a 10, right? It's just that's all.
Yeah, totally. It's just not it's just not a 10. Like, and like I said, it just, there was all this anticipation for it, and it just didn't quite meet my expectations. Like, so like I went out last night, and this dude was like, this dude that I didn't know, like he asked my friends if he liked Star Trek, and I didn't say anything because like the dude was like talking a whole lot, and I didn't necessarily want to talk to him. But then he ended up asking me if I like Star Trek, and I said yes. And then he asked me if I like Lower Decks, and I said yes. And he was like, ooh, like the episode tonight, and I was like, ooh, I haven't watched yet. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's like the best episode of Star Trek I've ever watched. And I was like, dude, like there are so many great episodes of Star Trek. And he's like, yeah, I know, but. And so, like I had been anticipating this for like 8 months. And then like the dude was like, oh my God, this is the best I ever watched. Like Patrick Patterson was like, oh, this is like my favorite episode of Star Trek ever. So like my expectations were just sky high. And I thought it was good. Like I didn't think it was great. I don't even think that this is in my top damn cats. I don't even think that it's in my top episodes of the season. Actually,
it was a phaser.
There's a few episodes this season that I like more than this one. So I think it's good. I just don't think it's like great and outstanding, but like it's a wonderful blend of the two shows.
I loved it. Got some love from Boimler. That was really nice, actually, that they tied the stuff from the courtroom episode. You know, made her feel like a more important character.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That was well done. It is not, I agree with you, Braxton, by the way, and this is no surprise to anybody who knows me. This is clearly not the best episode of Star Trek ever, but it's a good episode.
Mm-hmm. You know, I really liked Robbie, that episode, or not the episode, but that scene when Una was like, "Oh, you know, like I highly disapprove of like, you know, you like meddling in these like temporal matters, but like thanks for telling me like about me." You know, I thought that was very cool how they brought that episode back to us. You know, toward the end of the show, I thought that was very cool.
But I love. Yeah, it gave her a boost. But I also love the scene in the hallway. She's like, I don't want to know. That was great. I don't want to know.
Yeah, actually, let's transition into Una. That's like really cool. I think like, you know, one thing I love about Strange New Worlds is like these characters that Majel Barrett had kind of pioneered. They're being developed so much more. And, you know, that was very sweet. Also, I want that poster and the pin really badly of you know, Una recruitment poster and everything. But yeah, that was really great. I also loved how she was like, you know, she was like very like, why is he always like scared of me, or like cause he was like afraid to look at her and like all that stuff. And you know, she's just kind of like prodding gently. And in the one scene, one of my favorite scenes is like when they're trying to configure the sensors to detect the Orion ship's warp path, and Boimler's like, well, what if you guys just don't look at what I do? That reminded me so much of Star Trek 4, of like how,
what if he invented the thing?
Yeah, what if he invented the thing? But also those sensor upgrades are on the Enterprise now. I don't think he undid what he did. So like now the Enterprise has that on there. The other scene, there's just so many little moments in this episode to talk about. We could certainly go on probably for more than an hour, but I do have a question here. What did you guys think of how the time travel worked? Because it's really hard sometimes to do. We've actually seen a couple of timey-wimey episodes this season now, and a lot of people had trouble with the one with La'an because they're like, you know, it's kind of like hard. Like there's a lot of things going on in terms of like temporal flux, if you will. But this was more like I guess what do they call it, the bootstrap theory, or like the self-fulfilling, like the time loop. Basically they always went back in time to do this adventure, and they were always a part of the events. And that's how the Orions actually, you know, everything was kind of like always going to happen. We were just seeing it unfold. And I think that's the kind of time travel that I love, because it doesn't really require you to get a headache, as Janeway would say. Like everything's wrapped up nice and neatly in a bow, so to speak. But how did it play for you guys? Braxton, why don't you go first this time?
No, Starfleet Boy, I totally agree with you. You know, I'm fine with time travel. I feel like the only issue in storytelling that I really don't like is shapeshifters, but I'm cool with time travel. And I agree with you. Like, I like the kind of time travel where, you know, this was what happened, you know, and they're not like interfering with stuff. But yeah, I agree with you. It was cool for me.
Excellent. Robbie or Ken?
I don't really care about I don't really care about how the time travel works, you know, as long as it's not another going around the sun, because we've had that way too many times and that would take too long and also be too fan servicey of that they wouldn't do that anyway. But also on an unrelated note, I thought it was kind of sad what they were saying about Pike. You know, they were kind of bringing the episode down when, well, if you think about it, Boimler cosplays as Pike? That sounds kind of
He dressed
sad.
up as him for Halloween, so it's a little different. But wait, what do you mean? It's a little sad?
Well, like he's some scary figure with a wheelchair that goes beep beep.
Oh no, I think he dressed up as him as like Captain. Wow, yeah.
Oh.
Imagine.
Well, why would he be scary though as Captain? I don't get that.
Oh my gosh, he was in a beep chair. Oh no, that's terrible. I wasn't
so
thinking
dark.
of that. Oh my gosh, it is. That's terrible.
They're telling him all the stuff that's gonna make him feel not great about the future. He's
By the
already
way,
moved past that, and then they're telling him about the beep chair.
one of the cool things about that scene is that, like, for a moment there, I thought Pike was gonna like let them in on his knowledge of his fate. The way the scene was kind of going, like, you know, they're kind of skirting on this idea of like, you might not have too much time left or whatever, and Pike's like, I know, and then he, you know, goes into the thing about his father, and I really liked how they kind of like subverted the expectation. I was like, oh wow, Pike's gonna tell them, like they're gonna know about it and stuff like that. So I like that
He
as
did say
well.
that. He says, "I already know."
Yeah, but he didn't say it. So
Mariner said it, and she sort of mimicked the chair, and he sort of said, "Yeah." So I thought it made.
I have to watch it again because the way I saw it is that like he didn't let them know that he knew about that. Like it was like saying, I already know, and then he says, I'm a year older than my father. So they were like kind of relieved because they were like, oh, we thought he already knew his fate, but it's about this other thing that he's talking about.
I interpreted it in the way that Ken did, that he told them that he already knew.
Oh,
but now that you're saying that, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll have to go back and see. But I did interpret it the way that Ken did the first time.
During the Spock and Boimler scenes together, when they were like creating, you know, trying to create that element in the lab, one of the things that I loved is that it reminded me of Willy Wonka, and like Boimler was Charlie. They're like together, like doing science like experiments with the goggles and everything. And that's actually the outfit that I'd like to cosplay, is the lab outfit with the glasses and the apron and the gigantic gloves. Everything is very cool. But what were your thoughts on the way that, did everyone get to share their thoughts on the way the time travel all worked out?
No, but that's okay. First of all, I'm going to say, Robbie, that from now on, it's always going to be called the beep chair. I love it.
That wasn't common.
No, it's the beep chair. No, I don't think it has a name, but I like the beep chair, so that's what it's going to be called from now on.
It is the beep chair.
The time travel stuff, you know, Star Trek has a long history of portals doing portal things. So
portaling.
So that's fine. The idea that it could be taken off the planet is kind of new. As for the slingshot effect, they don't know that yet. You know, the slingshot effect was first discovered accidentally in the Naked Time. Or no, Tomorrow Was Yesterday. Tomorrow Was Yesterday was discovered that way. They did go back in time in the Naked Time, but anyway, so I was fine with the time travel. You know, Star Trek has done time travel so often. It was okay to do it this way. You know, and I do like the thought that all of this was, you know, predestination paradox kind of stuff.
That's the word I was. Thanks. That's the time travel mechanics that I was looking for. Thank you. But carry on.
So I think that's fine. And I already commented on the Pike scene with the lower deckers. I just thought that was an incredibly emotional scene. There was a lot of deep emotional stuff in this episode for being what was mostly perceived as a comedy. There was a lot of big moments in this episode that were more character building, emotion based elements that were not just pure comedy. So I thought that was great. What was your question, Suhail?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I felt it was a bit kind of. I'm not sure I loved Boimler telling Spock that this is not how he's going to be in the future, the smiling, because then does that mean that's going to be like the reason that Spock, I assume it's not, but you know, it's
well, he says it, right? He says, you know, I'm assuming by your discomfort, by my experimenting with emotions, that I become more Vulcan later on.
I loved seeing Spock suss all that out, like figure it all out, like through logic. But anyways, he also even says like, there's really no other course of action for me to pursue because I have to do the, you know, like he's like trying to like remind Boimler that like, you know, he shouldn't be sharing all this knowledge.
I suppose that doesn't influence him. It's another combination of things like with Chapel.
Yeah, it's true. Oh, I love. Yeah, Jill says Spock was always a great detective. Well, his ancestor was Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes. So yeah, it runs. there's an interest in the family, I guess. An
And
ancestor
Spock
of
has already experienced. He
time
has.
travel.
He had he's experienced time travel, I guess, through Discovery to somewhat, right? But he knows about time travel because what the Discovery did.
Right.
But also, he hasn't quite figured out yet, but that his uncle is actually him when his Sailot died, right?
Yes,
So,
that's right. Oh, that's
that,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
that's
Nice.
coming up later too.
That's absolutely
But
right.
what's
And then
also interesting is that there was a change there, right? In yesteryear, they talked about before yesteryear, the Sailot lived. And then after yesteryear, the pet Sailot died.
and
Right?
Strange New Worlds referenced the pet Sailot
Yeah.
last season, which was very cool.
And this season. And this
Oh,
episode.
it was in this episode as well. You're right. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right. That's very cool. Oh, I had a question. Oh yeah, the other cool thing was the grain. What was it? The tetracali grain? Isn't that the same grain as in the
Triticale.
yeah?
Triticale is it's quadroticale.
Oh, so this was
in
try. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a different version of it. This is specific for these colonists that were on this planet. So yeah, it's neat that the Federation has well, I guess it's a GMO product. So I don't know if everyone likes that, but in this case, it's fine. But yeah, there's so many things that were, I think, personally for me, this episode, I do think of it as among the top crossover episodes, and I guess it kind of goes all in, similar to Trials and Tribulations does, and because the other crossovers are kind of like characters from one show coming into another show, but I think these two stand out as Star Trek's top two kind of crossover events. And Alex Kurtzman has teased that there's maybe a big crossover event sometime in the future that's going to happen, and I wonder if the Section 31 movie is the vehicle with which they'll do that, because it kind of makes sense with Section 31 being involved in all these advanced things with time. They could also have time travel shenanigans there, and they can also have portals. Lots of portaling can occur in Section 31, so there may be more.
They got the Guardian of Forever, but don't get me started on that.
Carl, by the way, it was asked in the audience earlier, what would you name this portal? What would this portal's name be? And I think I saw Saul. I saw what else did I see there? I'm gonna name this portal Steve. That's gonna be my for this portal. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna call it Alex Kurtzman.
There you go. I'm with Robbie.
He teased this episode. He teased the crossover, and he also teased the musical, and Section 31, and you seem to be getting them in kind of close succession.
I would name it So Hail. I love that. Thanks, Father. Well, guys, let's wrap up the discussion with some final thoughts and a rating. I'll go first and just say that it's been a real joy talking about this episode with you guys. This episode is such a delight, but this season of Strange New Worlds is definitely not holding back. They're making big swings, as they've alluded to, and we're gonna get even bigger swings ahead. I can't believe that there's only 3 episodes left in the season. It feels like I feel like there's so much more story to be told, and I support 100%. As I think we all do, the writers and the actors on strike. So we're probably not going to see new Strange New Worlds for quite a while, because production has definitely been halted. But I will say that this episode, this season, just watching Star Trek in general proves to me that imagine if these writers were getting paid living wages, where they could actually afford to even go deeper into their love of Star Trek and work. A lot of these writers, the writers, the actors, everyone, it's really a struggle for them, because they can't just be on one show. Like TNG casts always talk about like, wow, we landed a show. That's it for the next 7 years. We're set, whatever. That's no longer the case with streaming. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's a shame because you can see that they're really putting their all into these shows, and I can't believe that they hardly make any, money out of it. So if there's any reason, so kudos to everyone who made this happen. I hope this gets resolved soon, and that creators get paid a fair wage and can actually like get insurance and like stuff like that, and have a little bit of peace of mind so they can actually create more and do more things, and not maybe even like put in more there's a deadline, right? So maybe if they had more time, they could do more and stuff like that. So yeah, I just think overall this is amazing, considering my eyes have been opened kind of, I guess, as to what's going on behind the scenes a lot more than ever before. And considering all that, I can't deny that Star Trek is like a prestige property, one of the best things that's out on TV. I would say, like, if I was only allowed to have one TV show or set of movies that I could ever watch from now into the future, and I couldn't watch anything else, obviously it would be Star Trek. But I think that's a really good choice for anyone, because Star Trek has it all. Like it covers the human adventure, as it used to be the tagline, and we're seeing it all the time. So this is one of those special episodes that kind of reminds you of that, because it's like merging these two different Star Treks together. And yeah, Michelle, Trek is an experience, exactly, and it's an experience that teaches people about humanity and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this is another episode this season that I cannot rate. I'm going to give this an unrateable. It's like beyond a 10. So that's my rating. Let's go to you next, Ken.
Well, I agree with you completely, Sohail, about standing in solidarity with the unions. All of this wouldn't be possible without the actors and the writers. And so, let's hope that this all gets resolved quickly. I think, Strange New Worlds is breaking into the top 10 in the streaming numbers, just like Hard Season 3 did. So, Paramount is seeing very clearly all the love here. The fact that Paramount saw fit quickly to release the back 10 of Star Trek Prodigy onto physical media and release it to the streaming services. So I think Paramount is clear that Star Trek is a diamond that they have. They just need to be able to treat it better, and treat the creatives behind it much better. So we'll see what happens with that. Paramount has its own problems, but Star Trek is not one of them. So this episode, I thought that this episode was really fantastic. I do not like giving 10s out, because 10s is the very top, and it means that there's no place else for these things to go. But I would give it probably like an 8 or even a 9. I thought that it was really, really well done. A great interaction of two very different styles. And it was just really strong all around. All the Easter eggs were very well placed. I mentioned some of them. There's a heck of a lot more.
Which you'll see on Monday on Text Track, because he does the Gorn eggs, as he calls them. Yeah, exactly.
There you go, the Gorn eggs. I'm looking forward to that. So Text Track has got a lot of Gorn eggs to hatch next on the next episode. So yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10. I think it was very, very well done, and it was just a joy to watch. And Star Trek, more than anything else, Star Trek should be joyful to watch, and this was exactly that.
Right on, Braxton.
So this chat has given me some perspective, and I have to retract something that I said earlier. When I said that nothing happens on this show, I think that I feel like I should take that back. So,
yay!
So Rebecca Romaine did say in the after show, she's like, "Oh, we're taking big swings," and as I thought about that, I was like, well, like, like Discovery and Picard, like, they're like meeting these new aliens, and they're like taking on like universe-ending threats. And Strange New Worlds is not doing that. They have this Gorn storyline, but that's very much like in the background and like only touched on sometimes. But what Strange New Worlds is doing is they are developing these characters. You know, they're like doing like small things that like don't have a big impact on the universe, but they're developing characters. And so I do appreciate that. So I wanted to give this episode an 8, but I think that it perfectly executed blending the shows and what it was going for. So that, in that regard, like it's like a 10. So I'll settle in the middle. I'll give it a 9.
Yay, nice. I just like it when Star Trek gets high ratings. You guys
Was
make
that
me feel sick.
the Boimler stream there? So yeah.
Yeah. Robbie, give us your final thoughts and a rating.
Overall, I feel like this season's been really good, but I kind of miss season 1 had that kind of episode that was a bit debatable. We had the Gorn episode that Hemmer died in, and you know, I know there was controversy about that one, but I like that it was a bit darker, a bit more serious. Not that I'd want the show to be like that, but it just meant we also had the Lift As We're Suffering Cannot Reach. But mostly it was comedy in it and it felt good. But I feel like this season has just maybe missed one episode that's a bit more serious. But it's still really good and I'm still really
I
enjoying
feel like it's coming, Robbie.
the last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
or even maybe the last couple. We'll see.
That's kind of funny after a very comedic season to just
Yeah.
But
Or I would say you keep saying comedic, which it shouldn't
lighthearted,
bother me, but lighthearted. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like, but yeah, exactly. So, what would you give this episode?
I'd give it an 8.
Nice.
No,
Well, it's 8.5. Yeah. Well, since I gave it infinity, we can bump everyone's rating up to a 10. Yay! No, just kidding. Folks, well, this has been really fun, guys, and thanks to the audience for joining. We had quite a few folks tuning in. If you get a chance, please smash the like button, and if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. We would love that. It really helps us out. And you know, I'm not sure we're going to be doing lives again every week, but I think I'm getting my sea legs back, so we'll try to do lives again very soon. So stay tuned, folks. Ken, what's going on in your universe that you'd like to share or promote, and where can folks find you?
So first I want to say it's great to be back on live with you, Sohail. It's really fantastic. You know, you're a dear friend, and I'm so glad that we're back doing this, at least this week. You know, Robbie, Braxton, it was always a pleasure to spend time with the both of you. So thank you for for letting me be part of this. For me, my big thing is always focusing on my company, Talk About It, which is a health awareness company, focusing on raising awareness about a whole variety of different health conditions. And you can find us at talkaboutitonvideo.com is the best place to find all of lots of our good work, or at talkaboutit.org on Twitter. We are going to be doing some Talk About It stuff at Star Trek Las Vegas. And it looks like Greg, my buddy and partner, Greg Grunberg, the actor, his band is going to be performing Saturday night at Star Trek Las Vegas, and be a bunch of special guest Star Trek people there. And I get to introduce the band, so that's kind of nerve-wracking, but also
that's really cool.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So that'll be good. So we went through a list of people that are going to be on stage, and I told him he's got to go after Marina Sirtis, and he's got to go after Grace McFadden, and he's going to go after Brent Spiner and Todd Stashwick and a bunch of those folks. So
oh my gosh, it's gonna be lit.
Yeah. So that's it. That's me.
And you'll get to meet Fathery there. He's going to be there, and a couple other friends. I think Matt from the salon. Are Stan and Trev going to STLV?
They are, and
fantastic.
I don't know if we're going to try to do the salon live from Vegas, but that is the musical episode
weekend, right? Yeah. Oh, great. Or that week, rather. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So oh my gosh, dude, that's going to be fabulous, dude.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Tex Trek usually does lives from events like that too, so we might see some stuff from there as well, which would be very, very cool.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to meeting Tex Trek and everybody.
Yeah, it's Fathery who's in the audience. By the way, everyone, tonight in just 4 hours, they're going to do a little first reaction stream over on Text Trek, as well as tomorrow a deep dive discussion at 8 p.m. Fathery's put all the links there, so if you could go and set your reminders for that, that would be very, very cool. Braxton, where can folks find you, and have you got anything to promote this week?
Folks can find me on Twitter as long as it lasts. I'm hearing like,
oh yeah,
it's gonna be
I don't
like
even want to get into
or
it.
something like maybe by like tomorrow. But yeah, I'm
talk about a madman running the.
but yes, I'm there at Leviathan
Someone needs to take
026.
him to the same place as Dr. Daystrom. My goodness.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yes. But it has been fabulous to be with you today. Starfleet Sohail, thank you for having me. Ken and Robbie, it's been wonderful to see and interact with you guys as well. And I feel like the end of the week might be kind of boring if there's no Star Trek releasing on Thursday.
There is.
This was a treat. This was like a special treat, and then they're still gonna do a new episode on Thursday. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Dude, more support for this show just being candy, dude.
Yeah,
I love it.
Sure. Excellent. And Robbie, where can folks find you, and have you got anything to promote today?
EGT Earl Grey Trekkie on Twitter, and not Star Trek related, but I saw Oppenheimer yesterday, and it was really fantastic.
Yeah, I'm down to see that too, and I want to see Barbie as well.
Oh, I saw Barbie, dude. Barbie was fabulous.
Or Oppenheimer, then Barbie, so you're not grim leaving.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I love that it's like a double feature that people are doing. It's kind of great. That's cool. So you saw Barbie, Braxton? It's good. I'm not
Barbie's
surprised.
Good.
I'm really excited about Barbie. It's really cool.
Yeah, Barbie's good. It's real fabulous, dude. I got a lot of laughs out of it. Margot Robbie is very good, and so is Ryan Gosling, and a lot of supporting actors as well. It was a good story.
Excellent. Well, folks, thank you again. Live long and prosper, and we will see you next time.